Hey guys, sorry it's been a while. It's been kind of boring around here actually. We haven't been doing a whole lot. A lot of spraying. That's kind of a big part of what we do this time of year, and I haven't spent a whole lot of time in the sprayer. Dad's out there spraying now. You can see here I'm out in a soybean field, and we're pretty far north. We've got a pretty northern climate, but this is pretty small, pretty short for our beans this time of year. We wish they were a lot taller. It's been really cold, or colder than normal anyway. The last couple mornings have been about 46 degrees at 5 a.m. So that's a lot colder than we want it. We haven't had many hot days. We had about a 5-day stretch where it was really hot, or what we'd consider really hot. And since then, it's just been down like 70 degrees for a high, sometimes in the 60s only. So it's been cold. There's been a lot of rain. We had 3.5 inches of rain here a week and a half ago. These soybeans did get a pre-emerge spray on them. They're pretty clean, but we are putting down some generic Flexstar. So we want to get that on before July 1st so we don't have any carryover issues. Another thing is, you can see it right here. I hope you can see that, but our beans, a lot of them are starting to turn yellow. That's from the cold. On our really heavy soils, our heavy wet soils, high pH soils, what happens in these cold wet springs, we get an iron deficiency. They call it iron deficiency chlorosis. And that's what you see here, where the beans are turning a little bit yellow. They're not terrible in this field, but they're definitely not a nice dark green like we want them. They just got that really light color to them. And we're seeing that in most of them. The worst is actually the extend beans that we have. So the Dicamba resistant beans, we're not real good with knowing our varieties yet. And those are actually worse. I think we didn't get nearly as IDC tolerant soybeans in our Dicamba resistant beans. And that's because they just don't have real good IDC beans yet in those Dicamba resistant. So that was kind of a lesson learned on that. We'll watch that a little bit more for next year. The good part is we do have a couple plots out there where we tested several different extend varieties. We've got one, the dealer's got one, so Channel Seeds has got quite a few different varieties out there that they're testing. So hopefully next year we'll have a good handle on what varieties are good and which ones are good for IDC tolerance and that kind of stuff. And I wanted to show you guys here. You can see how clean it is here. This all did get pre-emerge put on it. Just start the four-wheeler up here, drive forward. We ran out of pre-emerge, and we went back. It was nighttime, we were out of pre-emerge, so we drove back to the yard, loaded it up, and we were planning on coming back in the morning. Well, we got rain, and then we figured the beans are swollen up. We didn't want to drive over them, so there is 50 acres up here that didn't get pre-emerge on it. And I wanted to ride up here with you and show you guys the difference that pre-emerge chemical has made for us since we started using it. You can see it's nice and clean in here. Hopefully you guys can hear me yet. Then we get up here 100 feet, and all of a sudden we got weeds. And those weeds are what we call lamb's quarters. We got a bunch more up here. So the lamb's quarter are coming in thick right here. So that pre-emerge has done a good job of taking care of those for us, because those have always kind of been a problem. You can see where the rows run the other way up there. It got really bad up by that guy's yard. So there's no question in our minds here, pretty clear to us, that the pre-emerge has been working. So we try to get that pre-emerge on as much as we can. Here's a weed right there. That is the lamb's quarter, like I was talking about. That's what we had problems with, but we've been able to control it really good with pre-emerge. Here's the weed that's the real problem. This is what we call water hemp, and we've got a real issue with that. They'll grow up to be 6-8 feet tall, and they'll have 3/4 of a million to 1 million seeds per plant. So you really don't want to grind one of those up through the combine and spit it out, because the big thing with them is that we're having a lot of problems trying to control those with Roundup now. So we're hoping with the combination of pre-emerge, The stuff we're using now, the Flex Star, it'll burn the beans a little bit, turn them orange for a week, but you know, you got to do it to control that weed. Basically, that's our big problem right now, is trying to control that weed. You can see several more of them here, and if we let those go, they'll really be a problem. So we're trying to knock those out. The other thing that's going to help us a lot is the Extend beans. Being able to spray those with Dicamba, that's going to nail that weed pretty hard for several years. So hopefully that's the opportunity we need to eliminate that problem, because that weed has become a real issue for us. So that's a little bit about what I got going on today. If I find anything else to talk about, I'll be back. Here's a little patch I wanted to show you guys. Without the pre-emerge, I'm guessing we chewed up a couple of water hemp plants here last fall. The big ones actually here, these big ones like this, that's giant ragweed. Those are also a problem. So far, not nearly a problem like the water hemp, but the giant ragweed is a problem. Actually, this spot's got everything, because there's a I forget the name of it. I just told you about it, but lamb's quarter. But this here is water hemp. All these short little ones here, this is all water hemp. So this has been sprayed. Come back tomorrow, this stuff will be, I mean, it's probably dead now. You just don't know it yet. But it's been a couple hours since that's been sprayed. I just wanted to show you guys what happens when you grind through a couple of water hemp in the fall. I'm standing in the cornfield across the road now, or up the road from that bean field, and the corn is doing, it looks a little bit better than the beans. It's showing some of the same signs that the beans are. It looks like it's been too cold for too long. It's a little bit uneven. It's just not a real pretty crop compared to some of the crops we've had the last 10 years. Last year especially, 2012 was really nice. I think 2012, this time of year, we had corn that was at least up to our heads. So that was really good for us. We're probably, it feels like the corn is smaller than average, but it maybe isn't. It's just hard to look at it compared to the last couple of years where it's at here. You can see it, if you know what you're looking at here, it's wanted more heat. You know, it doesn't look terrible, but it just wants warmer weather, similar to the beans. But it's getting tall. It's well up over my knees now. It's just not where we wish it was. Walking through a little bit more, kind of paying attention to some of the plants here, looking at the stages that they're in, and looking for deficiencies. The plants really, they actually look pretty darn good. They've got a pretty decent color to them, maybe a little bit lighter than what we'd want to see just from the cold, but all in all, I'm not really seeing any signs in this area anyway where anything is deficient, where it looks like they're unhealthy by any means. So it's just a little bit short, a little bit behind. Hopefully it'll pull out of it soon. Right here I'm standing in a spot where for about 200 feet last year I couldn't plant through this. I had to lift the planter up and just drag it through the mud. I was able to drive through it. There wasn't water standing, but I had to pull the planter through the mud, and it kind of sat wet here all year, kind of all the way in through this area, and the corn didn't yield very good through here at all. So what we did was put underground tile in it. It's got a perforated pipe that runs through it. Put it down at whatever depth the tile guy figured we needed to get the right amount of fall, and you can see it's been dry all year. I planted right through it, and actually the beans in this spot, kind of along this line here, the beans in this spot actually look a lot better than they do out where it was planted last year. So I'm guessing that's just because, probably mostly because the soil's warmer here, because it doesn't have the residue laying on top. So you can see right through that line there where we planted last year and where this just stayed black last year. So we ran a pipe. That's a planter skip there for no reason. I don't know if probably fell asleep or something. It's hard to find good guys to run the planter. Anyway, the pipe runs up through here and underneath us and down through here and kind of snakes over into the woods there. And this whole area sat wet and never produced a real great crop. So we put some pipe underneath there, and things are looking good. I've come out here after a few rains, and that pipe will just basically drain the excess water out from the subsoil so that the roots aren't sitting wet all the time. It doesn't keep it too dry out here. It just takes that extra water that always waterlogs the soil and causes root rots and things like that. You know, I haven't talked a whole lot about it yet, but a lot of people are really against drain tile because they believe that it's hurting the quality of our waters by letting nutrients into our waters. One of the big things about drain tile is when it runs underground like this, phosphorus and potassium cling to the soil. So in this field, it's a lot better to have that water filter through the soil and get to the drain tile than it is if this area was waterlogged and we got a 3-inch rain. What would happen before is the water would wash over the top and it would carry soil right over there. And a couple hundred feet into those woods, down the hill, there's a pretty decent sized, when I say decent size, I mean for here, but it's not big, but it's a good sized river, probably 10 feet wide. And it's an important river that snakes through this whole area. There's a lot of small creeks and stuff that flow into it. So we want to take care of that water. And what could happen before is the soil would wash right into those woods. And now by putting this pipe in here, what we hope is that the ground will stay drier and the water can saturate into it and get to that pipe through other methods instead of carrying our nutrients or our fertilizer with it. That way it filters down through, the fertilizer binds with the soil because the soil's got a negative charge and those nutrients are positively charged. So hopefully it doesn't carry our fertilizer with it, because those nutrients are expensive for us. We don't want them leaving the field. We want them in our dirt so that the plants can use them. So that's my opinion on drain tile. You can call it an opinion if you want, I guess, but maybe what I should call it is just science. That is the way that it works. Nitrogen has got a lot more complicated cycle. Nitrogen actually changes phases, so it goes from a positive charge to a negative charge and back and forth. Nitrogen is a lot harder to control. We do have a lot of technology right now that's coming out that's helping us to control nitrogen and get a lot better handle on what we're doing with our nitrogen. And one of the big things that I've learned so far is that we had a pretty dang good handle on our nitrogen before. A lot of the technology you can't really trust yet. It's a little bit iffy, but they're definitely working on it pretty hard. And so I'm excited to see in the next 10, 20 years what happens. I think we're gonna have some really cool stuff to control what we do with nitrogen out here. So that's a little bit about that. I kind of rambled on, but I wanted to touch on that. Quick update on our buffer strips. This is that ditch I talked about in past videos that Grandpa dug 100 years ago. You can see here we went ahead and put some hay on it. We've got oats planted with it for a cover crop, so that'll get baled up with the hay when the time comes. It's looking pretty good. Looks nice and clean. And we put in Roundup hay, Roundup resistant hay, so I don't know, we'll probably come through and spray that to clean some of this up. You can see some of the cocklebur are coming through there. I've never had hay before, but we've got a landlord who's got cattle, so I think the plan is to have him come out here and he'll probably bale some of this, and figured I'd give you guys an update on that. I don't know a lot about it, but it looks good to me so far. The hay looks a little bit thin maybe, but maybe once you get the oats off, maybe the hay is gonna look a lot better. I couldn't tell you for sure the planting date on this, but yeah, it's new anyway, so that's the update on that. Well, that's about all I got for today. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time starting to go through our planter now. What we're gonna do is open these up. I've already done it here actually on this side of the planter, but we'll clean these out, take the discs out, take the brushes out, take the scrapers out, open the top on them, blow them all out, kind of get the powder and the dust out of them, clean them up, take the tension off the closing wheels here, and I'll empty those tanks tomorrow. There isn't a whole lot in those. We try to get them as empty as we can when we're done, but that's a few things we'll do to the planter before I take it outside and wash it. Hopefully the weather's decent tomorrow so I can get that done. And thanks for watching. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook as well.